to go harsh,
No,
you
if
can go harsh.
Just clear up like this with this Ayesha thing, and she was 6 and he consummated at 9.
You want to do it on camera?
Not particularly, but can you explain that? How does that work?
Yeah, so in Islam there's a principle. Like if I was to ask you, what age should a woman be ready for marriage?
Yeah.
What age would you say?
For marriage? Well,
Or consummation of marriage?
So you're asking me is in 2024? Or like
now, now.
I mean,
According to your opinion.
a 6-year-old, no way, shape or form can a 6-year-old marry.
Yeah.
It ain't happening. What age? I'd probably say 16.
16.
I think so.
Why 16?
It's a good question. I don't know about brain development and blah, 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 but I guess we're still developing up to then. I think 16, we'll say in this country you can drive at 17, I think you can, you're voting at 18, but it's just a number I picked. I mean, you've got your teenage years, you're still developing, so I'm just going to stick at 16. I can't give you a definitive answer.
When do you think a woman is ready for consummation?
I mean, it's not really something I think
Scientifically?
about. Yeah, sure. It's not something I think about.
Puberty? That's typically what people say. When your body is ready, then you're ready.
But then again, there's other factors, like, because there's the age.
Got you.
You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
it's a tricky one.
So I just wanted to garner where you are.
9 years old.
So she was betrothed at the age of 6. That doesn't mean they're married. She was betrothed. The Prophet waited for her to get ready.
Yeah.
Now in Arabia, the age, in fact, even in the 1980s, there's a journal article. Now, I don't know when you're talking about evidence, what you regard as evidence.
Yeah.
So scientifically, what you regard as evidence is peer-reviewed journals. So there's someone called Marcia Herman Giddens in the 1980s.
Right.
She said that in our textbooks, medical textbooks, it says 12 is the age that a girl is ready for intercourse. She says because she was a medical woman, she said, from my observations of the development of the breasts and of periods, it's 9. Yeah, that's Marcia Herman Giddens. She's off the US.
Who is she, sorry?
Marcia Herman Giddens. She's a doctor.
Okay.
And she's written a peer-reviewed article, and the article you can find online. That's why I've given you her name.
Okay.
And normally, also, the reason why I have the conversations online, because if people think I'm just gassing, because I've given certain names, they can go home and they can check it.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Personal question.
Do you want me to just finish that? Because
Sure, go for it.
yeah, because I want you to kind of just see where it's coming from and then have an informed thing.
Yeah.
So that's what she said. Now, Islamically, there's 3 criteria for us for marriage. One is she has to be physically ready.
Okay.
If she's not physically ready, it's impermissible. Number 2, she has to be mentally ready.
Okay.
And number 3, it has to be socially acceptable.
This is Quran, this is Islam.
Yeah, Islam.
And but is there any age specifics associated to that?
Yeah, so what we say is actually in line with modern day science. So if you look in the Nature 2017 journal, it says that there's no age for maturity.
Okay.
Yeah, and in Islam, that's the criteria that we have. When a girl starts menstruating and she's mentally ready and it's socially acceptable, then she can get married.
Okay.
But again, before she gets married, she has to be asked her permission. So we have that in something called the hadith, which are the sayings of the Prophet.
Right.
Now, you only ask someone's permission if they are mentally at a certain level, isn't it? You can't ask a child, well, like they do nowadays, do you want to be a boy, do you want to be a girl?
Sure.
You can't. You only ask a girl when she's mentally ready. So there's that mental side of it. Physically ready, Ayesha herself.
Was she asked, Ayesha?
Yeah.
Oh.
You can't do it without asking.
Okay.
And even when the Prophet passed, even during the marriage to the Prophet, she could have asked for something called the khula. Khula is when a woman is unhappy with the marriage, she can ask to nullify that marriage.
Okay.
If there's something called the harm principle. If she feels that she's being harmed. Sexually, physically, mentally, however. If she feels she's being harmed, she can nullify that marriage. In Judaism, you can't do that. There's something called the get, which ironically you can't get unless the man gives it. So divorce by a woman is not permissible within Judaism. In Christianity, in the Bible, I'm sure you know, you listen to Bob and these guys, but within Islam, a woman can get a khula. Ayesha didn't get a khula. And on top of that, it was something that was considered normal. That's why you even got Jordan Peterson as well. Jordan
Heard of
Peterson,
that guy.
yeah. Jordan Peterson is a Christian. He was asked, do you have any issues with that? He goes, no, because in those times it was something that was permissible, and we even have our royal family members and even people in England who are doing similar stuff. So the age is not much of an issue. So those are the criteria. She has to be asked the permission, she has to be physically ready, and it has to be socially acceptable. If it's not socially acceptable, if she's not mentally ready, and she's being physically harmed, she can nullify that marriage. She didn't nullify that marriage, and on top of that, she, even after the Prophet passed away, she didn't say that she was coerced, she was unhappy. She continued narrating about the Prophet. She didn't say this happened or that happened. And even the people that were around at that time, they looked for any excuse to disparage him, because they were idol worshippers, and here was an individual who was saying there's only one God. So naturally they would look for any excuse. Not one of them ever said, this guy is this.
So I've got a question.
Yeah,
so
of
like
course.
in 2024, with Islam, what's the stance? How would that work today? In your opinion or in Islam's opinion?
Yeah, so that's why, remember the third criteria,
Yeah.
it has to be socially acceptable.
Right.
So if I'm living in this country, or we're living in this country, like you said, there are many factors. One of those factors is the law of the land. If a Muslim is staying in a country, we follow the law of the land.
Yeah.
Number two, also like you said, mentally, there's something called childhood. Childhood was not something that was present back in the days, pre-World War II or pre-World War I.
Right.
I think that came like through the Renaissance or the Industrial Revolution. That's when it kind of childhood came in, because before, mate, you know what happened? As soon as the child was of a certain age, they were like, off you pop, start earning, start living. That's why kids over here, you send them up chimneys, they were down in the mines, because there was no such thing as childhood. Childhood came afterwards. Now, as society has kind of gone in a different direction, the direction is children aren't ready. There's something called childhood, and mentally they're not ready. This is the law. No, today, in fact, if you actually look, Muslims are actually the least when it comes to surveys that marry young. It's mostly, you'll find in India that happens, in America, in the conservative areas amongst the, I don't want to label certain kind of groups, but there are certain Christians that it happens among. In Africa it happens because of course there's a lot of poverty, and they can't afford to have their kids lingering around.
Right.
When they're of a certain age, you start getting married, and boom, you move out and you do your thing. You work, you get married, you survive on your own, because we can't survive Ebola, HIV, all of that sort of stuff.
I've got a question.
Of course.
Personal question.
Go for it.
I don't know, I feel you might know what I'm going to say, but so, I don't know if you've ever got children. If you have got children, so you've got a daughter, and she's 9, would you let her have sex with an adult, with a man?
But I've already answered that, isn't it? In today's day and age, it's not socially acceptable.
Would you allow your 9-year-old to have sex with a man?
Today,
Yes.
she wouldn't be mentally ready. No girl's mentally
say
ready.
no?
Of course I will. Yeah, no. Not 9, not 10, not 11, not 12, not 13. Bro, 18? No.
Okay.
Law allows her 18? No.
Okay.
20? Okay, it depends how I've raised her. She might be ready by 20. Shall I tell you? You talked about brain
One more
development.
question, sorry.
Of course, go.
So, around the world now,
Yeah.
in 2024, do you think is acceptable with Islam that 9-year-olds or 6-year-olds getting married, 9-year-olds having sex? Would you agree with that?
Islam doesn't encourage that.
No, but do you agree with it?
If a 9-year-old today, undeveloped, mentally undeveloped, no, of course not. This is ridiculous.
What if you think, but okay, you're evading the question. So like, is it?
You're talking about the social aspect, isn't it?
Well, just Islam in general, because I think it is still being done today. So do you agree with that, or
I thought I answered your question in a bit more detail than you asked.
All right.
But tell me if I'm evading it again. I'll try to be direct. If the 9-year-old is not mentally ready, she's not physically ready, and it's not socially. If she was mentally ready and physically ready, then it's not socially acceptable. If you're in an Amazon rainforest or a jungle, then who are we to tell them, oh, you can't do that or this or that? It's up to them, isn't it? That's why I'm saying that Islam doesn't say, oh, you living in that.
If it happens in a country that it is acceptable, would you agree with that, or you got no stance?
9-year-old. Well, I was born and bred in the UK, so I know people with the society that I'm living in. 9-year-olds aren't developed here, so I'm biased.
In a country, forget the UK, in a country where.
Which country? Give me an
I
example.
don't know.
Saudi Arabia.
I don't know. Yeah, wherever it's.
I've been Saudi Arabia. 9-year-old is still too young nowadays.
Okay. Do you know anywhere in the world where it's happening today? I don't know.
There are statistics of it happening in India and the US, and in certain tribes in
But you condemn
Africa. Yeah. I think 9 is. In this day and age is too young.
I agree.
But the thing is, for me to go to a African tribe and tell them, I don't know how they're functioning, I don't know how they're upbringing their kids. For me to go and start enforcing my way of life, I can tell them that, look, these are the 3 criteria in Islam.
Yeah.
They might not accept Islam. I can explain to them logically that, look, that's the criteria. If they say, look, she's mentally ready, she's this, she's that, she's going to starve, she's that, I say, look, you guys know your situation best. Me, from a Eurocentric point of view and this and that, I can't really say, but if she fulfills that 3 criteria and that country says it's socially acceptable, it's up to you guys. You do what you want. You see? Because I'm not going to enforce my view upon you. Me, born and bred here and knowing how kids are and this, I'm not going to go to some next country and start saying, yeah, you guys should do this. I say, look, this is the 3 criteria that we have.
Yeah.
If you think that's the criteria, it's up to you. You do what you want. Me condemning it or this or that, I don't think that's really my position. I would feel like 9-year-old, is she ready? That would be my question. And it would be up to them to prove if she is or not. And it would be up to me to prove, again, that she's not. Do you see? So the burden of proof would be on me if I'm saying, no, don't do it.
That's a very, the answer you've given is very, you've explained it really well.
Thank you. I did try to be, because I know it comes up. What about?
Sounds a bit sticky. It sounds a bit sticky. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Because then, you know what happens? I didn't give one aspect, which you'll probably hear, which is people would say, oh, how old was Mary when she got married to Joseph? Or how old was Isabella? And what does the Talmud say about getting married to 3-year-olds? Sure. But again, those are other case studies that a person can look into. But I'm giving you the Islamic principle because you asked me from Islam point of view. So, what's your name? My name is Ishan.
I'm Rob.
Rob. Nice to meet you, mate. So, Rob, let's be...